Hi, in this video I wanted to talk about if you've ever wondered, should I pay off my mortgage first, like your own principal place of residence, and then invest in rental properties? Or should I continue having a mortgage and buy rental properties? So if this is what you've been wondering about for years, please stick around because I'm going to talk more about what to do when you're in this situation. So, buying rental properties is a little on your investor psychology. I mean, you need to have a certain risk tolerance and calculated risk taking to want to make money off the money that you have, which involves, of course, some risk involved. And paying down a mortgage, I understand, is something that just, it's like you lifted a burden off of your shoulders, and eventually you'll gain quite a bit of more income or cash flow because, well, you freed yourself from the mortgage. But financially speaking, what makes more sense? Does it make sense to buy rental properties and continue with a mortgage? Or does it make sense to pay off your mortgage and then accelerate the income that you would have, the payments that you would have made towards a mortgage towards buying a rental property? And I'm going to say, from a financial perspective, it makes more sense to actually buy more rental properties while you have your own mortgage. Now, typical mortgage rates in this day and age is ranging from 2.5 to 3.5+%. And that's what your principal place or your principal residence mortgage is likely having. And if you decided to, for example, pay down the mortgage, you would probably pay down the mortgage and say, as fast as 15 years. Maybe some of you guys are quicker, but I would say a typical mortgage is probably at least 15 years. Average mortgage amortization is 25 years. And so for some people, it's 30 years. So unless you're going to kill off your mortgage in 5 years' time, it's going to take a while to pay off your mortgage. And you're losing all those years where you could have invested in real estate and compounded your return on your money. If you had, say, I decide to take the route of not paying off my mortgage way back. When I bought my first rental property, I had a mortgage on my existing residence. And there was not one time where I thought I should pay off my mortgage, because financially it makes more sense to take a calculated risk where you have the likely if you bought the rental property at you're trying to increase the probabilities of success with that rental property, your returns should be at least 8% return on investment. I mean, I've got returns of investment of 20+% annually, cash on cash return, meaning the down payment that I made is making me on average 15 to 20% annually on that down payment. So for example, if I had invested $50,000 on a rental property, I'm expecting that annually at 20% return on investment, I'm making, 10% is $5,000, 20% is $10,000 return on my investment annually from the $50,000 down payment that I made on that rental property. And of course, that's because it's compounded by the tenant paying off the mortgage, appreciation, and cash flow, and all that adds up to, for example, the $10,000 annually that I'm getting cash on cash return on my down payment of $50,000, which works out to $10,000 annually. Now, what if I did the same thing for my own property, my own principal place of residence, where I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just put in $50,000 into my mortgage? Well, yes, you're going to say, well, there is appreciation, but you're still paying off your mortgage. Your mortgage percent is likely, for example, 3%. You're not getting 20% return on your investment on your money. You're getting 3%. Of course, that's mortgage pay down. you're also probably might be getting, depending on the market you're in, some appreciation. But it's not, it's still like you're paying off your mortgage yourself. And even considering the appreciation, you probably like, it's all in the wash at the end of the day. Because I find, like, for me, when I have my own principal place of residence, I put way more money into my house than simply a down payment. I like to, have nicer decks, a nicer fence. You get much more emotional with your own property. So you're going to inject a lot more than just your down payment. You're going to renovate. It's got to be renovated to your emotional needs versus just from a financial perspective. When you buy a rental property and you inject some cosmetic changes like paint, you're going to do a lot more with your own principal place of residence. And that's where your returns are a lot lower with your principal place in residence. In fact, if I had to assess all my properties, I would say, like, my principal place of residence is one of my poorer performers because I don't have a tenant paying off my mortgage. Now, of course, if financially speaking, this makes much more sense, which is to buy rental properties while you have your mortgage. But it all comes down to what keeps you sleeping at night. I mean, for some of you, you might feel like, well, I can't sleep at night knowing that there's this big debt, which is my house. And if that keeps you awake at night, then go for paying off your mortgage as fast as you can. This is the slower way. You're just accepting that, of course, I'm not going to get the greatest return on my money, but you want to sleep at night. And it's comfortable to know that. It's the same with my student loans. I had to pay it off in 2 years. Like, if I really want to actually just pay it off quickly, as fast as possible, like within months, but I couldn't financially afford it. But at that time, back in that way back, I wanted to pay off the student loans and just get it off my plate because it was just a burden. It wasn't a huge percent of, I think, interest. I think it was very, very low even back then. But for me, I delayed buying my first property, buying my first house, because I wanted to pay off my student loans ASAP. And that's the route I decided to take instead of buying rental properties. So I accepted that was a much slower way because my risk tolerance was a lot lower and I just wanted that burden off. Now, what's a combination route that you could take? Now, I'm going to talk about something that a lot of people don't do, but I've done before, is that you could do a bit of combination. Now, maybe you have a house that is your principal place of residence. You do want to accelerate your mortgage pay down. And maybe you have some unusable space in the house that you don't use on the day-to-day basis. For example, because of Airbnb and the access to the internet, is so easy to market properties and market for rent. Even on MLS, it's so much easier now to rent out your space for extra income. So, for example, if you have a house that has a separate side door entrance to the basement, and it is your principal place of residence, and you want to generate extra income to accelerate your mortgage paydown, well, that's a way you could tap into your basement and make an extra income accelerated for you, so that you're actually getting someone else to pay down your mortgage, if not pay off your monthly mortgage every single month. I mean, there's many situations where I've networked with people or investors who have done that situation where they rented out their basement suite or their ground floor suite and actually paid out their monthly mortgage. And many years ago, I actually did that. I did that not to pay off my mortgage. Well, it's to help be more live for free, be mortgage free. But I also used it as a way to afford my nanny. And also just to afford more vacations. It's just a great way to have an extra source of income. Or you could do Airbnb where you have extra room where you're like, well, might as well generate some money. I have like 5 bedrooms in my house. Why do I need all 5 bedrooms? That might be an income source for you where you help use the renting out the room because it's in a great location. Your house is in a great location. Your apartment's a great location. And you can collect an extra source of income to pay down your mortgage. So that's a combination where you are paying down your mortgage, but you found a different way where it's not using all your money to pay off your mortgage. So you're kind of in the in-between space where you're trying to figure out financially what makes more sense. And of course, the downside to this is that you have tenants in your own home, which may or may make you feel like, you might not be even comfortable with that. Like, for example, I have a family now, and I can still rent out my ground floor suite, and which I do sometimes for family, like family and friends, so extended friends who need to stay in Ottawa for long periods of time, and then I'll rent it out to my ground floor suite because I feel comfortable doing that. Now that, because I have my twins, security is a big thing for me. And so that's why I do that versus just renting out just to any tenant. And as much as I screen the tenants, I'm still uncomfortable renting out my separate suite when my kids are so young. Now, there's definitely ways to protect and your privacy and all that, including like installing security alarms and Nest, or where you can see things through your iPhone or through your phone. Like with technology nowadays, everything is possible. Having codes as your lock in your door, like that makes it so much easier, so you don't always have to be at the door. If say tenant lose a key, they can access the code, and they don't even need keys, they just need a code. So there's definitely many ways to protect your money. And Airbnb, same thing, you're still having tenants. I'm saying that if you're comfortable with that, where security isn't a big thing for you because you don't have young kids and all that, and you want to make extra income, well, that's a great way of affording your mortgage without using all of your money. I remember going to New Zealand last year, and I stayed at all Airbnb places with my kids. I felt comfortable doing that because as much as I'm screening out the properties that I'm choosing to stay in, the person who's on the other side of it is also checking out my reviews as a potential renter. And when I was there in New Zealand, I've lived in many houses where it was a single person who had a mega home, a beautiful home, and all her kids are like out of the house. Her husband is no longer there, and that was one situation. She just had a whole floor downstairs where she decided to rent it out as extra income. And I'm sure it was supplementing her retirement, or maybe she still had a mortgage and was paying off her mortgage. So all these things to consider about, does it make sense to pay off your mortgage or buy rental properties? Again, it comes down to you. It comes down to what are you comfortable with? Financially, just summarizing, definitely makes more sense to have a mortgage and then stick with that, your residence mortgage month to month, not pay it off, and and save your money and actually buy rental properties, because you're going to get a better return on your investment if you choose the right rental properties than if you were to pay off your mortgage right away, because your mortgage is probably like between 2.5% to 3.5%, 5%, whatever it is. It's a very low percent. So from a numbers game, always better to buy rental properties and still have a mortgage. Now, from a psychological perspective, if it doesn't make you feel well at night and you want to conquer that debt, I totally understand it. Then pay off your mortgage as fast as you can. And I gave you a couple options, ideas of how to accelerate your mortgage pay down, which is, possibly you have some unusable space in your house and you can rent it out and then use that rental income to pay off your mortgage right away. Or you could decide or you could decide to just live under your means and really, really save up, scrimp and save, and kill that mortgage as fast as you can. And then the moment your mortgage is paid out, then you'll have a lot more income to buy rental properties. One's the slower path. Obviously, the paying off the mortgage is the slower path. I think from a long-term numbers game, you lose out years that you could invest in real estate, and that's okay. You've accepted the slower path. Or you choose the faster path, which is buying the rental properties while you have a mortgage. It's really up to you. Hopefully that gives you some insight as to what you would choose, gives you some ideas of what you can do with paying off your mortgage or buying rental properties.